People should look at a government that promotes inclusivity.
Bem-vindo a mais uma entrevista do Brasil. É um prazer para mim estar aqui na companhia da Flora Mokgohloa. A Flora vem da África do Sul, ela está aqui no Brasil para participar de um evento de abertura do 6º Prêmio de Sustentabilidade da Fecomercio, que é um prêmio que reconhece projetos ambientais de vários setores da economia. A Flora tem trabalhado nos últimos 15 anos em todos os níveis do governo, na cidade, na província e no governo nacional da África do Sul, trabalhando com sustentabilidade, com projetos ambientais. Ela tem uma formação de ciência e ela está aqui para conversar sobre como os governos podem incorporar a ideia de sustentabilidade no seu jeito de pensar. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Our countries, both of them, Brazil and South Africa, have huge problems, right? We have all sorts of different problems, violence, corruption, and poverty. A lot of people think that if you have such big problems, think about sustainability is a luxury, is something that, you know, we shouldn't be worrying with more basic things. How do you respond to that?
Oh, yes. And thank you for this interview, by the way. Sustainability offers a lot of challenges to resolving most of the problems that cities and countries, specifically of the South or of developing countries, are facing. It is an opportunity for us to innovate in finding solutions that will be able to cover the diversity of the people that exist in our respective countries. So South Africa and Brazil, almost similar in the sense that we're both from the southern hemisphere on the one part. Secondly, because we share a commonality in terms of our climatic system, and that Brazil is actually much closer to South Africa than other countries of the South also. So there is a lot that we can learn from each other as respective countries, and even the cities themselves can learn from each other. We've got diversity of the fact that we've got rich people living side by side with very poor people. So what we need to be encouraging is in achieving sustainability is to ensure that when we develop our countries or our cities, it has to be inclusive and sustainable growth that we need to be pushing for. It's a kind of growth that needs to include all the people that they feel home.
One of the more impactful projects you were involved in was the BRT project in Joanesburgo that was built during the World Cup. And so the BRT is the bus rapid transit. And do you think that this project has actually changed people's lives in Johannesburg? How important is it?
The BRT is a very important project because, as we know, transport is the biggest socio-economic equalizer. So if we want people to aspire for the same type of better quality of life, get them into the same public transport mode of travel. As the city of Johannesburg, we have learned a lot of lessons from cities of Brazil, specifically Curitiba. Even here in Sao Paulo, there were some lessons that we took into account, and we also visited cities in Bogota and in Ecuador, essentially to learn how we can implement an effective public transit system that can ensure that we bring those that are further away from economic opportunities closer, whilst at the same time cutting down their transport costs. Just to give you any interesting statistics, in South Africa, we calculate that people that live further from the city, which are mostly poor people, they spend in excess of about 30 to 40% of their income just on transport alone, and that leaves very little for them to provide for their basic needs. So the public transit system that we have in Johannesburg, the BRT, which is the first for Africa, we've termed it the Rea Vaya, and it has provided a platform for what we call the mobility, the overall mobility system for the city of Johannesburg, in the sense that we want all the people of Johannesburg, the different transport providers, to buy into this platform called Rea Vaya with a tagline of mobility made easy. And mobility made easy in the sense that we expand it into the kind of infrastructure that we are providing. So for instance, now we are adopting in the development of our roads infrastructure what we call the complete streets. Traditionally, our cities, and I'm sure it's even the experience here in Sao Paulo and elsewhere in Brazil, is that the roads were built for cars. They were not built for people. And we are changing this mindset, specifically with our engineers, to start to say, when you build a road, think about the people first. And when you're thinking about people, it means that you're providing first for people who walk, secondly for people that can cycle, and thirdly for people that can go into a public transport system. And the last people that we have to think about are those people that have got enough money to buy their own cars. So they have to suffer the inconvenience of not being able to integrate with other people that use other modes of transport. And the one benefit about the complete streets concept is the fact that where it is implemented, it is able to slow down the speed at which private cars are traveling. We in South Africa generally, and even in the city, we've got a lot of people that are dying on our roads because of road safety issues. But where we have implemented the complete streets concept, we're finding that there is reduction in roads incident. Also, there is also much more consciousness towards road safety, because now the road belongs to everyone else. It doesn't only belong to cars. So you see even in the kind of signage that is being put into place that is able to accommodate all the road users.
So what you're saying is that every street in the city has to accommodate all kinds of uses. You can't have fast highways here and then slow streets there. Every street has to be adequate for all kinds of uses.
In our strategic public transport network, we have categorized the various hierarchies of the roads infrastructure. We do have metropolitan highways that are two major highways that run through the city of Johannesburg, and those ones can accommodate your high occupancy, your mid-speed vehicles. And then we have the second category, which are more your suburban long roads. And then we've got your suburban streets also. So specifically in areas where we've got increased economic activities in the second and the third hierarchy of roads, that's where we are looking at implementing the complete streets, so that we are able to provide for all the different kinds of users and that they have equal access to the use of the streets. And apart from that is we are putting in appropriate infrastructure. So for instance, in front of schools, you will find that we put in some traffic calming measures, such as your speed humps, and we've got adequate signage, we've got pedestrian crossing, to allow for easy access and equal access for all the road users.
This is interesting. It's a big polemic here in Brazil too. There was speed reduction in the city of São Paulo recently, and the current mayor decided to revert this decision. Some of the speed has gone up again. And most of the arguments he's been using have to do with economical activity. Like you have to make access easier for cars, because if you don't, it's going to be bad for business. And you're saying that high economic movement is associated with more access to different kinds of access. You're probably familiar with this polemic. How do you respond to that, to this tendency?
Well, my response to that is that a private car, especially in Johannesburg specifically, carries one person. However, when you go into public transport, we can carry in excess of 60 people or more, who are much more productive than one person traveling in a private car, you know. So a public transit system can accommodate a lot more people out of the private car and make sure that our cities are not gridlocked. Because the reality is the more cars we have on our roads, the more gridlocked, the less the production. And that doesn't necessarily bode well for city development in essence. So unfortunately, a private vehicle is kind of like a status symbol, especially for those people that are middle class, and public transit is more for poorer people. However, in my city, Johannesburg specifically, we're finding that with the introduction of the bus rapid transit system, and also what we call the speed train. We have the first ever speed train in South Africa called the Gau train. It moves from the airport to Pretoria and also to Johannesburg. And you're finding that a lot of middle class people, like myself, I use the bus to get to the train station, and then I get on the train station onto the train to my workplace. And it works quite well for me, so it means that I leave my car at home. I don't have to drive my car into the city, because it can take you in excess of 2 to 3 hours. Just to give you an idea of the fact that the average commute per person in Johannesburg is just about 53 minutes. And this is for a city that is about 1,600 square kilometers. So the 53 minutes is a little bit high for a city of that area. So, and I see in other countries, especially Germany, there's now really a big push around ensuring that we don't have more cars on the road. Instead, we're encouraging more non-motorized transport system and more public transport also.
You've been to Brazil before, not for a long time, but I was told that you like to walk around in the cities where you travel. Can you tell me a little bit about your impressions, especially when it comes to mobility and to environmental issues? How do you see the state of big Brazilian cities nowadays?
Maybe I should also contrast Sao Paulo with Rio, because I have spent some time in Rio also. The one positive about Sao Paulo is the fact that you've got very big sidewalks. That is an advantage in encouraging more feet on the ground, because we need to get people to walk their cities more than they drive through the city. Which is a bit of a disadvantage in my own city, Johannesburg, in the sense that in some areas the city is not that walkable and the sidewalks are much smaller, unlike what you have here. So I think that...
Though I think that what you saw is an exception. Most of Sao Paulo has very bad sidewalks.
Very bad sidewalks, yes, yeah. Where I have seen the sidewalks being bigger. But that can be re-engineered. It's been done elsewhere. If you go to downtown Manhattan, New York, you're finding that there has been a move to get it more walkable than it previously was, and more accessible to foot traffic than it was to private car use. So I think that the cities, unfortunately, because of the past ways in which they were developed, they have to then re-engineer into new solutions of making sure that the cities are walkable. One of the things that I do a lot when I travel is to observe public infrastructure, simply because through what I've been inspired by Gil Penalosa, the former mayor of Bogota, is his concept of 880 cities, where we're building cities for that can suit an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old. And we know that an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, they can't drive. Either they walk, or otherwise they can move in public transport systems. So the manner in which we develop our cities doesn't only have to think about productive people or private car owners only. It has to think broadly about all the road users of the city. One example where we're doing this a great deal is we are connecting one of the most densified areas of Johannesburg called Alexander, which largely has a lot of poor people, and one area called Sandton, which is considered to be Africa's richest square mile. And we have in excess of about 10,000 people that move by foot for a kilometer, for a distance of about 5 to 10 kilometers every morning and every evening. So what the city is doing in that particular regard is to say, we're not going to be able to move everyone into private cars, obviously, one. Two, not everyone can get onto the bus system either, so we are also building a BRT lane for that. However, there will still be people that still want to walk, and there will be people that may want to use bicycles also. So we are integrating all the kind of road users in the manner in which we are providing the infrastructure.
So what you're saying is that it's the obligation of the city to provide access to children and to old people. Like, if you don't see enough children and enough old people walking in the street, it probably means that your city is sick in some way.
Of course.
It's a problem.
Certainly, that is so true, because when we build cities, we're not necessarily building them for now. We're also building cities for the future. So it's about the future of our children. So one of the things that we did ahead of the 2010 World Cup was we integrated all the programs to be able to develop the city towards the kind of future, which is a sustainable future that we envisaged. We went on a massive awareness and education drive to get young people to be involved in planting trees. So we had schools participating in a massive tree planting program. We also, part of that included the building of parks and open spaces. So areas that traditionally did not have parks have been provided with parks. And what you see in most of our parks is that they are multi-use. They accommodate all the different types of the users with a lot of bias towards children. So you'll find a play area where parents can enjoy recreational activities with their children. And we also have an area that is dedicated to the older generation. And what we've done lately, which is something that I think we learned in some cities of Latin America also, was to put in exercise equipment. So we've got lots of outdoor gyms in most of our parks, and you're getting a lot of older people that then visit these parks because we've got a particular bias towards healthy lifestyles. Because in the future, what we provide as infrastructure and services has to also contribute towards what is called healthy cities. Because from where we come from, our cities were not very healthy. But what we need to go into is a system where our cities are not only sustainable or resilient or inclusive, but these are cities that also have to be healthy and that people can be happy to visit, because that will greatly improve the quality of life.
I see. If you look at the public debate on mobility in Brazilian big cities, and especially here in São Paulo, you will notice that there will be a lot of people saying that the city shouldn't prioritize investment for bicyclists, for example, because they are a minority, and they say that São Paulo isn't very proper for bikes because it's so big and climate is so unpredictable, and there are places that are so inaccessible. And I think that you're saying something very different. You're saying that the role of the city is to incentivize people to adopt more active ways of moving, right?
Yes, certainly. We have a similar debate in Johannesburg actually about cycle lanes. There are a lot of people that are opposed to cycle lanes in our city, and you find in some areas that cycle lanes have been overtaken by cars for parking. and therefore which means that the cyclists cannot have access to their infrastructure also. There's also another debate that says, why build cycle lanes when people are looking for water or for sanitation or for electricity? But the counter debate that then goes is one that says we have to encourage and integrate all the road users into our city also. We also have issues of topography in some areas that doesn't allow for cycle lanes. So our cycle lanes are specifically targeted in those areas where cycling can be feasible and people can be able to use bicycles to get to work. And this is a growing movement. The debate about the climate and the weather, I don't take it. You go to Copenhagen, people cycle in the snow. Probably maybe we can cycle in floods, but I don't think that cold and sweat can take you off your bicycle. I think that I'm not a cyclist myself. It's one thing that is on my bucket list, that I should get into cycling soon. But I don't think that just because the topography in some areas does not allow for cycling means that you can't build it where it allows for cycling, because cycling is one of the cheapest mode of transit. It doesn't lead to any emissions whatsoever, and the benefit also is a healthy lifestyle.
And you are also saying that it doesn't benefit only people who use bicycles. It benefits the whole city because of it has impacts in the health system, for example, and all these kinds of things. Your background is in science, right?
Yes.
You don't see too much people with a science background in public office in this country. How is it for you? How is it in South Africa? Do politicians listen to scientists? And is it too frustrating? How is this relationship?
I've been in a very fortunate position that what I've learned from university, I'm able to apply it into my workplace, and that it is something that politicians are able to accept. Science is very important in the sense that it provides you with the evidence base for the kind of decisions that you want to be making. So the in-depth analysis that we are doing on air quality, on waste management or water management is able to provide the politician with the right kind of decision making going forward. Right now we have this growing body of knowledge around climate change, and we know that whatever that we are doing has to be based on good science. Hence, what we are seeing now is that the assessment report that is being produced for the UNFCCC is also going to be calibrated to the level of cities, that for the first time in about 2-3 years' time, we will be having a dedicated chapter on the science of climate change in cities. Not only that, but also with the new urban agenda, there is a move to ensure that whatever we have to implement on addressing the challenges of urbanization, it has to be based on good science, because science is about ensuring that we collect the data and we are able to analyze that data and translate and interpret it into knowledge that can guide decision making.
Which sounds great, but we live in a very complicated time, right? The era of alternative facts.
Oh yes.
And and sometimes I mentioned the debate on speed here in São Paulo. What we saw when speeds lowered is that not only road queues diminished a lot, but traffic improved. So everyone benefited. But it wasn't a popular measure because drivers like to accelerate, so they were frustrated that they couldn't. And it was in terms of marketing, it was a good thing to say we are going to raise the speed because people want to get sooner at home. How to deal with that? How to deal with this populist time we are living in. Is life getting harder and harder for scientists or for people with scientific background like yourself?
Well, some leaders think that they can come up with solutions without any basis whatsoever. Because I bet by removing certain infrastructure, when you increase the speed limit, you are creating something somewhere else, you know. I've learned one thing in engineering called the theory of constraints, which essentially means that any chain is as strong as its weakest link, you know. I don't know what in this particular case the removal of speed limit was addressing. However, I bet that it has created problems somewhere else. Possibly that it could lead to more accidents because your speed has been increased on the one hand, but it can also increase your congestion in certain areas. Because some of the speed calming measures like reduction in speed, like traffic calming infrastructure, like speed humps, traffic signaling, etc. They are able to time the movement of people. So when you remove a bottleneck in one area, what you perceive to be a bottleneck in one area, you create a bottleneck in another area. So all you are doing is just to move the problem further downstream of what you would like to solve.
You, in your experience, you've worked for all levels of government, right? You've been in cities, but you've also worked in the national government. Which do you like the most? Which one is more important?
I think city government is where I've gained a lot of experience, and I actually have enjoyed my time working for city government. I wouldn't trade my experience for anything that I've learned at national government and provincial government. At national government, you mostly have to do with development of laws and policies which you can test in implementation. At a local government level, that is where you test whether those laws and policies are actually effective or not. And one thing is that where those laws are not able to be implemented, you are able to then influence the policy back up and influence the fact that that policy should then be amended to respond to local conditions. Because in most instances, people who work at national government haven't had the experience of local government. The second thing that I like about working for a city government is bringing something to life. I've had a number of infrastructure projects that I've been involved in, especially projects that improve the quality of the environment. So just before the World Cup, as I indicated, we were planting trees, we were building parks. And what got very interesting in these areas where we were planting trees and building parks, because these were impoverished areas, we found that once we have built a park and planted trees, people naturally started to improve their properties. So where properties were dilapidated and not being taken care of, because we've added a little square meterage of greenery, people then responded to that positively. So when you go to Soweto, which is the largest township in South Africa, you find that a lot of people in this area have started to improve their own surrounding. They've just started to respond very positively to the initiative that the city government has invested in. So which also helps in changing the mindset. We're also finding that people are very protective, especially of the parks that we have built. And they are starting to take over the management of these parks. They enjoy recreational opportunities in the parks. They can bring their kids for picnic, etc. So that is the bit of civic or citizen engagement that we've done through public investment. And these are some of the positive lessons learned of bringing something to life and the kind of experience that I've gained over the years that I can't trade for anything else.
So dealing with the environment means dealing with several different spheres of life. So you deal with so many different subjects that have to do with transportation and with sanitation and with security and all kinds of subjects. If you have to give one advice to Brazilian voters, we are here in 2017. What should be the most important issue people should think about when they choose their next government? What should they look at? What is the most important issue they should worry about?
People should look at a government that promotes inclusivity. The future has to be about inclusive growth, an inclusive growth that is also sustainable also. Ensure that it spreads the opportunities. It doesn't matter whether it's socio-economic opportunities or environmental or sustainable opportunities. They have to be spread across to every person in the country. So that is what people need to worry about, because the kind of trajectory that's happened in the development of the world specifically, it hasn't been about inclusive growth. We know that there's very few people that own the total global GDP. However, we need a government that, or governments that can be able to ensure that they spread the opportunities to everyone. And it has to be a government that also promotes peace and good quality of life.
Flora, thank you very much. Congratulations for your work, for what you've done in all these years in South Africa. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to talk to you.